Slocums Joe was a pre-war coffee and donut shop that presumably had locations all over the United States, but certainly in Massachusetts. We find 4 Slocums Joe's locations in the Commonwealth. The first is at Monsignor Plaza. I did a video on Monsignor Plaza where we explored this entire coffee shop. It's at the very top of this little shopping center. It has one of these beautiful Sicilian espresso machines. I think this is probably my favorite set piece from Fallout 4. It's just a gorgeous little machine. The second one is inside the General Atomics Galleria. I did a video on the General Atomics Galleria, which you can watch here, where we explored every single shop here and went through the quests here. X6 has something interesting to say when we get here.
We sent up a team to try to repair that robot, only to find it was hollowed out.
The Institute at one time thought this was a real giant robot? They must have only heard stories about it before sending someone to investigate, because it clearly looks like a fake robot. Anyway, we find the Slocums Joe in its own little shack out here, and it's manned by a Mr. Handy named Bean. The first time we arrive, we find the robot broken, and we see gas here. He tries to serve us scorching hot coffee only to ignite the gas, in which case he turns hostile. Once we complete the quests here and repair the robot, he still offers us coffee, but it's self-serve coffee, and the nearby Sicilian espresso machine has long since stopped working, sadly. The next Slocums Joe location is in downtown Lexington, really close to the Super Duper Mart. Even though it is its own separate building, it's an unmarked location. There was a little bit of a diner built outside with some booths and stools set up for people to enjoy their coffee and donuts, but this location hides a secret we only uncover by doing the railroad line of quests. If we go down this staircase, we find a door that leads to the Slocum Joe's basement. This was used for storage. We find crates and shelves filled with boxes and goods. They also did a little bit of cooking back here, but the real secret is hidden behind a bookcase. Here we find an elevator that leads to the switchboard. The switchboard is the railroad's name for a pre-war secret base of operation for the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. This is where the railroad found and reprogrammed Pam. Now, I did an entire video on the switchboard, which you can watch here, so I'm not going to go through everything that we find here, but we do find some terminal entries that talk more about the Slocums Joe directly above it. We learned that despite the switchboard being actively used by the DIA to collect information about the communist Chinese, that the Slocums Joe up top was a real functioning restaurant. Which of course makes sense. If the Slocums Joe was going to be a good cover, it would have to be a functional restaurant. This tells me that the United States military, or at least the DIA, worked closely with the Slocums Joe company to get this entire thing set up. The company likely had to train DIA agents to make the donuts, serve the coffee, and how to deal with customers convincingly, lest they give away their cover. We find an entry on one of the terminals from Deborah Finch, the lieutenant colonel in charge here, to everyone working at the switchboard. Subject, Slocums Joe number 38, weekly update. Cover briefing time, boys and girls. Numbers are in for September. Number 38 had a busy month. Traffic was up 18% despite reducing cleaning in half. We are a go for the General's Operation Rotten Egg, so hold your breath getting to the elevator. If anyone mentions Buzzbites, play dumb. Raspberry and cream filled were the hot items of the week. The mayor stopped by to press some flesh on Thursday. If friends and family ask, you were downstairs in the shipping department and missed it. Saturday had a freak thunderstorm that blew out one of the transformers. Whole block was without power for 4 hours, from 0900 to 1300. Those on shift have been briefed, but what everyone would know is shipping was locked inside for the duration. Had a donut party. Remember, deflect, deflect, deflect. The fewer details you give, the less likely you're to be tripped up. Despite scouring the game files, I couldn't figure out exactly what they meant by the General's Operation Rotten Egg. Was there a gas leak in the switchboard? Did it smell bad because they reduced cleaning in half? I'm not sure. But they do mention something called Buzzbites. What exactly is a Buzzbite? And why would Lieutenant Colonel Finch want her agents to play dumb? Well, this brings us to the final Slocums Joe location in the game. Heading on over to the Malden area, we see another one of those big Slocums Joe billboards. Large coffee and a jelly donut, only $30. This is the Slocums Joe corporate headquarters. We are approaching from the north. This brings us up behind the building, and we see a garage in the back with a power armor repair station. All we see are a couple of containers to loot. Heading out the back door, we see that this must have been a really nice corporate park before the war. There's a little cobblestone path that leads to a sitting area where we see an interesting statue. It appears to be none the worse for wear despite the apocalypse. But what is it a statue of? It looks like some sort of bust of a robot. I wonder what significance this might have had before the war. Anyway, we can circle around the back of the Slocums Joe corporate headquarters to find the front. We see a big Slocums Joe logo out front and their iconic mascot, a huge donut holding a steaming cup of coffee. You know, I tried to figure out what their name might mean. The Joe part of it makes sense. Cup of coffee, cup of Joe. But Slocums threw me for a loop. A lot of weird business names in the Boston area. Joe's, Spucky's, Slocums Joe. The best I could come up with is that Slocum is a proper last name. The most famous Slocum I could find was a man named Joshua Slocum, who was a famed adventurer who lived between 1844 and 1909. He was the first man to sail single-handedly around the world. He was lost to sea in November of 1909 while aboard his ship, the Spray. However, this has absolutely nothing to do with coffee or donuts. The man was born in Nova Scotia. He wrote a popular book at the time called Sailing Alone Around the World. It made him a lot of money due to his fame being the first person to sail single-handedly around the world. And with this money, he purchased a small farm in Massachusetts. This is the only Slocum connection I could find to Massachusetts, so my bet is that this coffee and donut company named themselves after Slocum, the hero who circumnavigated the globe. And the way he stayed alert while sailing was by drinking this coffee. I can see the commercials already. Anyway, this corporate headquarters is in a bad state of affairs. It's not a restaurant like the other ones we've seen, so we don't see seating, we don't see a kitchen, we don't see coffee machines. This is where all the paperwork was done, all the business was made, and many of the walls are blasted out. There's a hole in the wall leading out to the garage out back, there's a hole in the wall right next to the front door, and even though this building is many floors tall, most of these floors have collapsed in on each other. We find a staircase that leads on up to the second floor, but there's nothing up here but a bunch of blasted out terminals and a whole bunch of desks we can loot. We do find one Raider cooking station right next to a closed door, but we'll come back to inspect this in a minute. First, we have to go up to the final floor to see if anything is up there. Taking the steps on up to floor number 3, we see that this floor is in the worst state of repair. The roof is completely torn off. We find a terminal dangling down through the floor, an empty Nuka-Cola machine, a couple more containers, and a chemistry station right next to an end-of-dungeon steamer trunk. With the final floor explored, we can head on over to the door on the second floor. This leads to an interior cell, Slocums Joe offices. As soon as we enter, we see raiders through a hole in the wall. Turning off our light and creeping around the corner, well, I butchered that. But now that the raiders are dead, we can explore. It looks like these offices are some of the only intact ones in the entire building. At least this one has 4 walls and a roof. We find a lot of desks and more blasted out terminals, and one of the desks is locked with a novice lock. Inside the desk, we find some ammunition, a note labeled Notice to Slocums Joe, and 4 Slocums Buzzbites. Opening our Pip-Boy, we can take a look at the note. Dear Slocums Joe Incorporated, we regret to inform you that we will not be approving the distribution of your latest food prototype. Recent focus tests indicated a 90% chance of third-degree burns from your hot, coffee-filled, chemically preserved donuts or Buzzbites, and as such, they cannot be deemed safe to the public. You are allowed to resubmit your request in a year, assuming you solve the noted issues. We look forward to doing business with you in the future, and hope this does not hurt our relations. Charles Wenson, CHWA. What could this stand for? Corporate Health and Wellness Association? Commonwealth Health and Wellness Association? Commonwealth Health and Wellness Agency? Sounds like it was written from some sort of governmental agency like the FDA. tasked with approving food for public consumption. And now we know why the DIA agents at the switchboard were told to feign ignorance if they were asked about the Buzzbites. The Buzzbites had not been fully developed yet, they hadn't been released. They were currently in development, and we only find them here at the corporate headquarters. The 4 we looted from this desk have interesting characteristics. They increase our max AP by 25 and grant us 1 perception, but they cost 10 hit points. Next to the desk, we see an advanced locked safe. After picking it inside, we find a small assortment of randomized loot and the Slocum's Buzzbites recipe. Hey, now we can craft these suckers at any cooking station. Even though this is a miscellaneous item, if we try to take a look at it in our Pip-Boy, we can't access it. Heading back to our settlement or player home, we can go on over to a cooking station. We find the recipe in the roast section of the cooking station. Making 1 Slocum's Buzzbite requires 1 coffee tin, 1 dirty water, 1 Mirelurk egg, 1 oil, and 3 razor grain. We learned that the bonus effects last for an entire hour, plus 1 perception and plus 25 AP for a whole hour? That's pretty awesome. And we finally understand exactly why it costs 10 HP, because it burns the mouth when eaten. That must be because it's filled with hot coffee. It's surprising to find these Buzzbites in the desk, still filled with hot coffee that burned the mouth after 200 years. But it makes sense that if we're scratch making some of these, they would still have mouth-burningly hot coffee. But my favorite thing about the Slocum's Buzzbite is the container. Look at this sucker. Bethesda put some effort into this guy. For such a tiny item that's so easy to miss, it's a uniquely shaped little box with a carrying handle. It's got a little train on the front that says Buzzbites, piping hot on the go. And we see coffee being poured from a pot, steaming right into the middle of some donuts. What a silly idea. But for those of us old enough to remember, we know that the Buzzbites are inspired by Munchkins, made by Dunkin' Donuts. And it's likely that the Slocums Joe company is based on Dunkin' Donuts because Dunkin' Donuts is also based out of Massachusetts. While Slocums Joe is based out of Malden, Dunkin' Donuts is based out of Canton. Like Slocums Joe's Buzzbites, some of Dunkin' Donuts' Munchkins come with fillings. However, it's not a filling of piping hot coffee. Usually the fillings are some sort of jelly or sweet jam or something. And that is the full story of Slocums Joe Coffee and Donut Shop, named after the first man to sail single-handedly around the world. What are your thoughts on Slocums Joe? Did you know about the Buzzbites before this video? Or is this old news to you, and you use Buzzbites all the time in your playthrough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I've got a new shirt in the shop, folks. Thanks, killer. That's right, everyone's favorite psychopath, Pikmin. On the front we have his distinctive heart and signature from Fallout 4, and on the back, a portrait of the man painting one of his masterpieces. You can get this in t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, in a wide variety of colors, and I've even got a canvas print available. You can find a link to my shop in the description below, or by clicking here. Thanks for watching all. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week on a wide array of topics spanning all of the games. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.